Welcome back, y'all. Street Academy Podcast, where we keep one foot in the academy and one foot in the streets. And we got the same clothes on because we doing multiple episodes. So we got the same clothes. So it don't mean we poor, all right? Don't mean we broke. Or not all the way. We still working on, you know what I mean? But it just means we just shooting multiple episodes. So y'all gonna see a couple of the same clothes a couple weeks in a row. That's all right. Anyway.
It's all good.
So this Minisode that we're getting ready to shoot and talk to y'all about is about ungendering. We heard about this concept called ungendering by Dr. Hader. And we just like, wow, like what is it? Yeah. So she's gonna talk to us a little bit about this concept. And this is our first time hearing about it. So you're gonna get our actual, like, you know what I'm saying, reaction to it, because we don't know what it is. So
yes.
Well, let me clear this up. This is not my concept. Please do not put my name on any of this stuff.
Citation.
Do not
Dr.
cite
Hader
me.
2022.
Do not cite me. I am not trying to get caught up on no plagiarism charges. None of that.
Don't at her. Do not at Jackademia.
Yes, you can say you heard it from me. You cannot say that this is what I did.
Okay.
So ungendering, it actually came up a couple weeks ago because as y'all know, I'm teaching a gender and education class this semester. And so we started out with like a little theory, and ungendering was one of the concepts that I really wanted to talk through with my class. And so I had them read a couple of pieces. I had them read Spiller's piece, Mama's Baby, Papa's Maybe. And when I think about that piece, it is probably one of the top 3 most difficult pieces that I've ever read in all my days on this planet. It's hard because I think it's like there are texts that are challenging, that are just difficult to get through. Like you might understand it conceptually, but the language is so dense. And then there are other pieces where conceptually it's difficult, but like you can get through the language. This piece has dense language and difficult concepts. So it's hard to get through. Something that helped me get through it was a piece that you can find online by Hari Zayed called My Gender is Black. And that piece is interesting because they talk about like being on a train. They talk about being on a train with their significant other, and somebody says like, why can't they be normal boys? And so that sends Zayed down this kind of like thought-provoking rabbit hole of like, what does normalcy mean for me within the concept of my gender? And so ungendering, quite simply, is the idea of uncoupling gender from Blackness. And the reason for that is because gender is a human concept, like it's a human categorization. And humanity is not extended to Black people. Like we can look all over the world. As a matter of fact, Amber and I started talking about this in light of what's going on in Ukraine and how even in the midst of a life and death scenario, people can still pause long enough to practice anti-Blackness, pause long enough to tell women and children that they can get on the trains and the transportations to escape unless you're Black. Right. So these sorts of human categorizations of gender, childhood, they're not extended, like they're not granted to us because in that scenario, Black women were not seen as women. And we can think through that concept and its application like across the spectrum, right? Like the scenarios that we used in my class were how physical violence is visited upon Black girls in particular. And we looked at like examples of that one video that was so jarring of that security guard flipping that girl out of her desk in that school in South Carolina over a cell phone. She had her cell phone out. And so again, ungendering is just this idea that we should consciously be thinking about our categorization of being seen as Black and understanding that as people read us, they're not reading gender as well, which is why white women can wild out and do whatever and Black women can't. Like, we don't get afforded the same sorts of daintiness and femininity and all sorts of other tropes that get extended to white women. Likewise for Black men. Black men have a very narrow box to play in as far as like emotion. That's why white men can storm the United States Capitol and no one, well, I think there was like one person who got shot and killed, and other folks like kind of died from like health complications. But that's why they can plan an insurrection against a whole country, and police show up with like those little flexible handcuffs and rubber bullets, as opposed to, I think about the West Indian Day Parade in New York that I've been to a couple times, and the police presence there at a parade, a celebratory event, is much greater than the police presence at the Capitol during an insurrection. So that's ungendering in a nutshell.
Thank you for sharing that. It also reminds me of a story I recently read about Mary Turner, who, long story short, her husband was falsely accused. This was in 1918. Her husband was falsely accused of murder, and he was like dragged out and hanged by a mob of white men in Valdosta, Georgia. And then she spoke out against this, against what happened to her husband, and said that she wanted to try to make sure that the people who did it would be held accountable, and she will report them. And so then she went into hiding, and then a day later, they hanged her as well. And what makes it worse is that she was 8 months pregnant. And not only did they hang her upside down, and like shot her up, but they cut the baby out of her womb. And then, according to reports, someone crushed the baby's head with their boot. And so it's like, not only was she like completely stripped of the protection of being a woman, then a pregnant woman, and then the baby. So it's just like, I can't fathom at what point you only see this person as an animal. Like, you can only see that because you don't give her any compassion, because she just lost her husband. And of course, she's like, I want someone to be held accountable. So she doesn't even get that compassion to have any kind of grieving. And then the compassion that you would give to a woman in protection, and then the compassion that I think most people would say, she's pregnant though. Like, you at least do that to a pregnant woman. No. And then of course, to a defenseless baby, also no. And it also reminds me of a story of a Black woman from Ukraine, an African woman from Ukraine, who also said that she invoked the idea that she was pregnant just to see if that could get her any more protection in that scenario. And she couldn't. It was still like, don't, get off. And to me, it's just like, that was 1918, this is 2022. It's the same thing. There's still that feeling as a Black woman, you are an animal. You aren't, even with even that slight gentleness that would happen, that some people might say it comes from patriarchy. It doesn't. You don't get afforded that.
So it's almost kind of like saying that gender is a privilege. To be able to have your gender seen is a privilege, because at the very least, there are certain natural protections that you should have, particularly as a woman, that you should have based on your gender. But because we are Black, we are ungendered. We are genderless. That means whatever is necessary or whatever is needed for our gender to remain intact, our gendered expectations, our gendered normalities to remain intact, it is overshadowed by the fact that we're Black. It sounds like that's what That's what this ungendering is.
Yeah, and I mean, y'all out there correct and redirect and all that stuff, but I take that to mean that the privileges that get like that come out of being gendered are fairly consistent. Like they're just inconsistent for us. Like I can walk into a store and have on the most genteel whatever. You know, I might have, I don't know, a bun and a dress and pearls and diamonds and whatever else, and might expect to be, you know, I might be expect to have someone give up their seat for me, or I might expect like whatever sorts of like gendered performance one might think of.
Right.
I think white women can count on that like pretty consistently, and Black women cannot. So we are equally equated as we are it's just inconsistent. Like we could be treated like a beast of burden at the same time like someone could give up the seat for it. Like we can't activate that privilege on command. Like I even think about homegirl calling the police on the bird watcher in Central Park. And how many other videos we've seen of white women just kind of activating this white womanhood. We can't activate womanhood on demand, regardless of how we decide to perform it. And so that's why like our gender is irrelevant, just because it's hit or miss.
And it's so crazy because even from a male's point of view and talking about gender and masculinity, the gendered performances for Black men have been stripped ever since slavery. So white men are able to literally create a whole terrorist organization, right? That is supported from the local level all the way up to the presidential level. There have been presidents who have low-key supported the Ku Klux Klan. And the reason why they existed, one of their number one reasons that they say was for their existence was for the protection of the white woman. But Black men, in the smallest instance that we look to protect Black women, we are immediately cut off. We are immediately eradicated. We are immediately marginalized. That can cost you your life, right? And so I think that, and that is a natural performance from a man. Men are taught as a gendered male, you are to protect the woman. And white men have that privilege and have endless support of that privilege, and Black men don't. It doesn't mean that Black men won't. It doesn't mean that Black men haven't and continue to do it. But there are much larger consequences for Black men when we protect Black women than there are for white men who protect white women. And I think that's another part of the discussion of ungendering.
And you know,
no, go ahead, Amber.
And I was going to say that actually connects really well to something that recently happened that I do believe you all will be talking about in the next episode. But I do think right now we can probably close up this mini-sode on ungendering. So Jackie, any last thoughts before we close?
You know, this concept is continuing to blow my mind. So, you know, I'm glad we got a chance to chat about it and, you know, just kind of collectively wrap our brains around it.
All right, well, we hope you all learned something today. Ungendering, a new word. It's kind of a painful one, but it's good to know. And thank you so much, Dr. Hader. And thank you for watching another episode of Street Academy Podcast. This was a mini-sode. This is where we keep one foot in the academy and one foot in them streets. All right.
You know, y'all hit us up. Let us know what y'all think. Comment, inbox, whatever. That's what these mini-sodes are for, to gather larger discussion.
Bye.
Peace, peace. That you know got their feet upon the neck of the haters, the game and the devil like